Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of August 18th to the 24th of 2025. All right, so this week we have a new moon, which is both the ending of the current lunar month and the beginning of the new one. So this will be around the Thursday and Friday time period. As we do approach Friday, it will be the ending of the current and previous month, so really good to clear things, finalize things, maybe create some space. Very good to let the energies die down and really have that clearing, because from that clearing we can allow things to surface. We can create that space for new beginnings, and that's just all in all a great way of working with that phase. But once we do get to around Friday, really good for starting to set those intentions and see what new energy starts to come in. We've got Mercury direct now, there's forward movement, and going into next week, there'll be a slow shift of that forward movement coming into this new lunar month. So that's going to be in Leo. It's about self-expression, passion, love, matters of the heart for this month. And that's really the main thing this week. There is a square to Uranus with this, and the sun will be squaring Uranus on Sunday. So there could be some maybe erratic energy, some maybe wanting to break free, maybe have some of that self-expression and listen to that true self, and that's great, but collectively it could be challenging. So finding that middle ground with that and finding those constructive ways of working with that. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here's the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, August 18th. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. You won't see the visible sky like this in mainstream because unfortunately they use a seasonal system in the West. And even in the East with systems like Vedic astrology, they're using the simplified all even 30-degree signs. And so if you do look up at the actual sky though, you will see the constellations are different sizes. And so we are taking that into account here today with true sidereal astrology. So doing a little bit of a recap here, because we also do have some sign changes this week, some very important sign changes. We do have, of course, that main energy of the new moon. That's going to be, like we said, around the Thursday, Friday time period. But Mercury is going to be shifting into Leo as well in the later part of the week, and Venus into Cancer also. So lots of shifts of energy here. And with the sign changes, coming into this week as we're approaching that new moon, we're still going to have these planets where they've been. So the sun has been in Leo, and of course with the new moon, really good for that self-expression, cultivating those matters of the heart that we were talking about. But Mercury finishing Cancer, and really where Mercury went retrograde here, it's still about applying these important things perhaps we've learned or experienced these past few weeks around connecting to our emotions, our feelings, the past, maybe self-care, self-nurturance, having that protective energy for ourselves and others. So this is still really good to be thinking about and communicating perhaps while Mercury's still here into the later part of the week. And Venus in Gemini as well, and Jupiter will of course still be here, so this will still be expanded, this whole idea of learning and communication really for this whole 12-month period. But Venus has been really helping us see the value of that, the beauty of that, the connection to that. And so that's still really good this week until she shifts into Cancer there. So Mercury leaving Cancer, but Venus entering Cancer still keeps that Cancer energy in play. And so while it's a time of self-expression, yes, still good to be connecting to the protective qualities of life and of ourselves. Mars is well set in Virgo. So when it comes to our assertive side, this isn't changing this week. There's still that sense of improvement, striving towards perfection, refinement, getting into the details of things. This is all really good right now when it comes to how we're asserting ourselves. Okay, so as you can see here, a lot of the energies are still very collective. When you don't see an X here with some of these lines, it means this is the bigger picture stuff that we've been talking about for these past weeks. Most notably with all this is that Saturn's still very close to Neptune. And so it's been this past couple months, this sneak peek into what early next year is like. And with Neptune so involved, it's very much about having a life that really speaks to our soul, is good for our mental health, our spiritual health, things of this nature. And so there's a lot of supportive energy for this. Also a lot of supportive energy for having more freedom in our life. Uranus is well aspected with this. and it's a kite formation that we talked about last week. And so here, sense of freedom and empowerment and listening to that true self. But let's talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because Uranus will be squaring up to the new moon and the sun. So we do want to make sure things are grounded with that. But coming into the week here on Monday, as we finish the lunar month, as the energies are dying down, we've got the moon in Gemini, 2 days here, Monday and Tuesday. So this could be a good couple days here for that curiosity and learning that we were talking about with Venus. Still this whole week, or most of the week while Venus is here, this whole year while Jupiter's here, but particularly these first couple days while the moon's here. So being curious, being interested, being inquisitive, being willing to share and exchange with others, this is all very good, particularly Monday. Tuesday will likely be playing the main theme this week in that regard on Monday and Tuesday. And nice to see that Mercury is sextiling up to Mars still. We've had that going on since last week. And so this could be a little bit of assertiveness, a little bit of directness in those thoughts and communicative processes. Nothing major with this, but it's nice to see Mercury in good aspect while it is this Gemini time period. As a side note, the sun will be trining Chiron on Tuesday. That can give us a little bit of a healing energy, a little bit of rejuvenation, especially when we are expressing ourselves. And so anything that does involve this Sun and Leo energy, self-expression, matters of the heart, this is all can actually be quite healing and quite therapeutic, particularly on the Tuesday time period. Now, once we get into Wednesday and getting closer to the ending phase, and by this point really being really what I consider the most spiritual phase of the lunar month, where it's really good for space, really good for clearing, turning more inward. And that'll be especially the case here with the moon in Cancer. And this is where we had the last lunar cycle as well in Cancer. So Wednesday, Thursday, along with letting the energies die down, connecting to perhaps what we experienced this past month. Maybe reflecting on that, maybe just connecting to it. And with Cancer, it's specifically about having that safe and secure environment for ourselves and others, and what we've been learning a lot about with that Mercury retrograde as well. So really good couple days there, even late Tuesday, but all day Wednesday, even early Thursday, a bit of that caring, nurturing, and protective energy to really complete things for the cycle. But this is where we'll start to feel these new beginnings. So we'll have the new moon for most of us late Thursday, early Friday in expressive Leo. This is Leo the lion. It's symbolic for all the things that we love in life, the things we're proud of in life, and the things that we've created in life. And so it's a great time to get into that creative energy, get into that expressive or playful energy as well, and getting into some of this self-expression, however you might do that. It could be through interests, hobbies, love in general, maybe romance, just having fun, a bit of comedic energy, sports even sometimes, literally creative, literally expressive, speaking, just a good time to get into some of that fiery Leo. But again, it is reset and it is in the lowest energy, so we're going to expect more of this to cultivate as the month unfolds, really just this, middle to later part of the week, seeing what emerges, connecting to the energy, and letting it sort of unfold there organically or naturally. So just after that, as we get into the weekend there, we can see that Mercury leaves Cancer, Venus enters Cancer. So that'll be, mostly around this, what do we have? The Saturday, probably mostly into Sunday time period. So a weekend of shifts here. And in this case, Mercury adding to the Leo energy, thinking in terms of self-expression, thinking in terms of what we love, thinking in terms of this more fiery energy. And so this can really be nice and can be cultivated for things that do involve the mind or communication that are fiery like this. And as we said, Venus going into Cancer can really help us start to see the value and enjoyment and connections that we can have in that more emotional and personal world. So this can be a great time, especially with relationships, as that's how Venus often represents things, is fundamentally to see the value of protectiveness and personal and intrinsic values of life, but also to connect with others in this way as well. So it could be family-like connections, personal, protective, things like this. Really good to really explore and enjoy and see the value of while Venus is here. All right, and like I said, so Uranus is in a challenging aspect with the new moon and will be squaring up to the sun on Sunday. And so as we are coming into this new lunar cycle, and I would say for the whole month, it's good to balance out some of that erratic Uranus energy. Uranus can be erratic. It is the planet that deals with connecting to our higher self, the part of our higher self that wants to listen to our excitement. that expression, listen to your excitement. This is all very important. But with this square, we want to make sure it's constructive, because naturally as a default, at least collectively, there could be some of that rashness, impulsiveness. Maybe there's just a challenge to get outside of our normal way of doing things. And so it's a great time to break up that routine, to see if we can approach things in life differently than we have before, and to be more open to challenging the status quo, and most fundamentally our own status quo. These are the challenges of the square to Uranus, but extremely constructive, because of course, if we continue just doing things the way we always do comfortably, maybe we're not open to change, maybe we're not open to stretching a little bit, then of course things, it prevents us from living that life of excitement and change and freedom. And so although it can be challenging with the square, setting that intention to be willing to challenge our own status quo, mix things up, step outside of our own boxes a little bit, be a bit flexible, be a bit adaptive, listen to the true self, and then from that, respond and express and create, because it is, of course, part of this whole Leo energy and the sun energy, and this can be absolutely fantastic. And very likely, Sunday, as we get into next week, a newfound sense of freedom, a newfound sense of the true self, or connection to the true self, that we can actualize more in these more healthy and constructive ways there. Okay, so that's some of the good ways of working with that. Over the weekend, just a minor note, we do have Venus squaring up to Chiron. And so there can be some healing here with maybe some of those relationships, maybe some of the general connections we were talking about, as she does shift into Cancer there. But anything around Friday, Saturday that could be challenging, that you may want to challenge yourself with healing with. This could be even just physical healing, but also mental, emotional, spiritual, or relational as well, can make it quite constructive. So again, with squares, we want to be intentional, and in this way, it's actually a beautiful thing. All right, so that's the week in a nutshell. And like I said, as we get into next week, slow building of momentum in the lunar month. So all in all, new moon, late Thursday, early Friday, new reset to the lunar cycle as we approach that, ending the Cancer energy of that protective energy that's still very much in effect and still very much good to connect to as we approach the new moon. But a reset here and getting more into the self-expressive qualities of Leo. Planting seeds, seeing what emerges, maybe setting some intentions there. We've got definitely some sign changes this week, but Cancer still stays strong, and Gemini still stays strong too, even though Venus is leaving there. Jupiter's definitely still expanding that curiosity and interest that's going on there. But there could certainly be a shift of values this week, and maybe a shift of how we're thinking about things with Venus and Mercury changing sign. And that's really it. And just, being mindful of the square to Uranus, to listen to that true self, have that sense of freedom and change, and be open to challenging our status quo a little bit. All right, so everyone, have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the live stream. Today, Anna Maria is going to be leading the live stream. She's also going to be doing some personal readings, quick readings on the fly for the live stream. So do stay tuned for that. Always very interesting, great to connect with the community. But have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.